Hey, I'm James. In this video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 podcasts that have helped solve real-world crimes. These true crime podcasts have taken off massively over the last few years, but did you know some of the podcasts have actually helped solve real-world crimes? Let's take a look. Podcasting is huge, and with so many genres to choose from, there is a podcast for everyone. But what's really interesting is true crime podcasts and how they're digging up cases from years and years gone by and reopening those cases, digging deeper into what happened and were they really solved? Was that person really guilty? Was that person really innocent? So here are our top 5 true crime podcasts that have actually helped solve real world crimes.
Number 1, The Teacher's Pet. Teacher's Pet is a widely popular true crime podcast published by The Australian, a newspaper, in 2018. According to the podcast, when Lynette Dawson disappeared in January 1982, she was 33, living in a Sydney suburb with her husband, Chris Dawson, a high school teacher and former professional rugby player, and their 2 children. The podcast series exposes many details of the Dawson case, including mishandlings by authorities. From evidence brought to light by the podcast, Australian authorities have formally charged Chris Dawson, who will now face trial for his wife's alleged murder.
Lynette Dawson was reported missing by her husband, former Newtown Jets rugby league star Chris Dawson.
He said, I was going to get a hitman to kill Lynn, and he rang me and said, Lynn's gone, she isn't coming back.
I just want justice, and I'd love her little girls to know she didn't leave them.
Number 2, Murder Squad. Murder Squad is hosted by retired cold case investigator Paul Holes and investigative journalist Billy Jensen. And in each episode they dig deep into unsolved murders, unidentified remains and missing persons cases. To solve cases, they rely on the skills of their listeners, who send in tips and theories, becoming active members of the Murder Squad. Thanks to a listener, the podcast helped lead to the arrest of James Curtis Clanton, a former Colorado resident who is now a suspect in the 1980 killing of 21-year-old Helen Prosinski. The listener added their DNA to GED matching software that they learned about through the podcast. They were then contacted by Douglas County law enforcement as their DNA was compared to the DNA found on the crime scene. The DNA was matched to be a third cousin of the suspect, leading to James Curtis Clanton's identification and arrest.
I'm Paul Holes.
And I'm Billy Jensen. Welcome to the Murder Squad. You've been listening, watching, and reading true crime investigations for years.
Now we want you to be part of our investigation. Starting April 1st, we want you to join our team.
I've solved cases through crowdsourcing on social media.
While in law enforcement, I've tracked down criminals for nearly 3 decades.
We will be diving into cases. Some are still looking for the killer.
Others need to find victims.
Number 3, Your Own Backyard. Chris Lambert is a freelance journalist and podcaster from the central coast of California. He is also host of Your Own Backyard, a podcast that investigated the disappearance of Kirsten Smart in 1996. In April 2021, it was announced that longtime suspect Paul Flores had been charged with the murder. San Luis Obispo County Sheriff Ian Parkinson credited Lambert with helping draw worldwide attention to the case and bringing forward several key witnesses.
Tell me everything that your son has told you about the night of the disappearance of Kristen Smart.
We never spoke about it, no.
He's your son. He's been accused of murdering this girl. And is it your testimony that he's never talked to you about those things?
Is this girl murdered?
Murdered.
No.
Well, he's certainly been accused.
This is what the television says.
Your Own Backyard. The Disappearance of Kristen Smart. A documentary podcast series. Starts September 30th.
Number 4, Up and Vanished. Up and Vanished puts a spotlight on the case of Tara Grinstead, a Georgia high school teacher and beauty queen who hasn't been seen for 12 years. Since Lindsay began researching the case about a year ago, plenty of new evidence has surfaced about the night in question. 2 suspects have been arrested and a judge has issued a gag order for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation not to comment any further on the case, something that Lindsay has hired an attorney to try and repeal.
She's going to turn back up. She's going to come back. She just went on one of these journeys. Maybe she's in a cult somewhere and she's just fallen off the face of the earth and doesn't want anybody to find her.
Number 5, In the Dark. In the Dark unearthed new evidence in a case prosecutors dropped instead of seeking a 7th trial against a Mississippi man who spent decades on death row. Curtis Flowers endured nearly 23 years behind bars, 6 trials, 4 death sentences, and most recently, months of house arrest for murders he always maintained he didn't commit. The In the Dark podcast uncovered evidence of his innocence, including facts pointing to another suspect and a tape admission from the state-star witness, jailhouse informant Odell Holman, that he'd lied when he testified that Flowers had confessed to the murders.
We all know what goes on in Mississippi. Once we get you in the courtroom, you ours. If you're black, we got you.
So the last one was full of empty filing cabinets, and this one is full of records.
Just be cautious when you go approaching some white people's houses, talking about Curtis. Just be careful.
So have you solved a crime? Let me know in the comments. Only joking. But if you're interested in true crime podcasts, I want to know what your favourite ones are. So let us know in the comments below. Plus also, if we've missed any, if you think there's podcasts that have helped solve cases that we've maybe not mentioned in today's video, pop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.
Hey, wait, before you go, perhaps you're looking to start a podcast for your business. And did you know that most businesses make the same exact mistakes? Whenever we work with clients who are struggling to get their podcast off the ground or they're not getting the traction that they deserve, it turns out that most of the time they're making the same mistake. So what I've done is I've compiled a guide which is called the 5-Step Business Podcast Checklist, which will show you exactly what you need to know to get your podcast up and running without making the same mistakes that most other people do. So you can download it for free at jamesm.com/podcast. That's jamesm.com/podcast. Go and grab your copy today.